Yeah. All right. Hey there, folks. Even though convention signings and other live events are back on track, I figured I would keep bringing book tour to you. So, welcome to Russ's Rockin' Rollercoaster, intriguing interviews with creative minds. And with Halloween right around the corner, i.e., tomorrow, it's that time of year again when the ghouls come out for All Hallows Eve, sometimes coming from the great beyond, which will be our theme tonight as we take our annual Fright Night journey into Spooky Stories 6. Ghosts and the Supernatural. On our panel tonight is my pal, the one and only Jonathan Maberry. Jonathan is a New York Times bestselling author who has won the Bram Stoker Award 5 times and has written horror, sci-fi, epic fantasy, and mystery with his books, short stories, comic books, and more, having been sold to more than 30 countries for adults, middle grade, and young adult, including original and tie-in fiction. And we're taking a moment. We are. Jonathan has hit the mother lode with his Joe Ledger series going live action from the creators of the John Wick franchise. Excellent, excellent, excellent.
Thank
Welcome
you.
back, Jonathan.
Oh, happy to be back, man.
All right, great to see you. All right, also on our panel is Sonora Taylor, the award-winning author of several books and short stories, including Little Paranoias, Stories, Seeing Things, and Without Condition. She is an active member of the Horror Writers Association and serves on the board of directors of Scares That Care. Welcome,
Thank you.
All right. And rounding out our panel is my brother from another mother and partner in murdery crime fiction, Sawney Hatton. Sawney is an author, editor, and screenwriter whose credits include the dark comedy novel Dead Size, the YA noir novella Uglyville, the satanic panic novella The Devil's Delinquent, which was part of our noir anthology Murder in Montague Falls, and his dark fiction short collection Everyone is a Moon, which is excellent, by the way. He also edited the sci-fi horror anthology What Has Two Heads, Ten Eyes, and Terrifying Table Manners, and recently debuted his own spooky novel Dirty Spirits. Welcome back, Sawney.
Great to be here, Russ.
Oh,
I'm not going to use that voice. Sorry.
okay. Don't do that. All right.
Okay.
I want to apologize up front for having really crappy guests tonight, but we'll do what we can. Just kidding. Just kidding. Come on. Sonora was ready to go for it right there. I saw that.
Oh.
All right. All right. So just a heads up to the folks at home. All right. I apologize. We're getting some weird feedback. Give me 1 second.
Spooky.
All right. Actually, all right. Someone. All right, here we go. All right, I think that was it. All right, I think we finally got it. All right, I solved the conundrum. All right, so I knew we had a spooky vibe going on there. It was just bound to happen. All right, just a heads up to the folks at home. Feel free to send notes or questions you have for the panel in the chat box during the show, and we'll get to a few at the end. All right, so as is our annual Halloween tradition, we're doing a spooky stories panel tonight, but we're going to focus on ghosts and also the supernatural. Now, to start, do ghost stories actually creep you out? Or are they just kind of amusing to you? Like, what's your connection specifically to ghost stories? And we're going to start with Sawney.
Oh, geez. Ghosts are probably the only thing that creeps me out. Is the only thing that, I mean, I could watch or read the most horrible stuff with, chainsaw wielding maniacs, aliens, monstrous aliens killing people. I can watch anything, but when it comes to ghosts, it's the only thing that will just, raise the hairs on the back of my head. And that I can't really say where that goes back to, but I think it might have been a Disney film. That's because there was a Disney film back in like the maybe 70s or 80s. I don't think anyone remembers this. I was a kid. It's called Child of Glass. Listen, if you watched it today, I actually did watch it today. You can find it on like YouTube. There's nothing scary about it. It's a Disney film, nothing scary. But when you're a kid watching this, and there's a cheesy ghost in it, and it deals with a well, and I remember having a really vivid nightmare about it, being trapped in a well with a ghost. And I think ever since then, it's just, yeah, just apparitions, ghosts. They creep me out. I don't like the idea of some sort of otherworldly being with me if I'm just like alone in my house or something like that, doing something, I don't know, maybe private, and they could be watching me, or they could be, banging on the door. I'm sitting there watching something or reading. It's nice and quiet, or something bangs on the door, or something falls off the shelf. Yeah, that scares the crap out of me, and it's really the only thing that really does scare the crap out of me. So when I read a good ghost story or even see a good ghost movie, yeah, that really does work for me in terms of it's the only thing that frightens me.
Hmm. So
Nice.
Sonora, what about you? Are you are ghosts just sort of, amusing, or do they get under your skin?
I actually agree with Sawney. Usually, I'm kind of the same way. It's kind of hard for stuff to scare me, especially in books because I'm a very like visual scare person. I often joke with people that like the reason jump scares get called cheap is because they work. Like, as and so, movies like will frighten me in that regard, but the ghost stories in film and in books just tend to linger a bit more. And what I actually find scarier are like kind of the more subtle ghost stories, like weird instances happening as opposed to like, a ghost that comes out and like physically harms people, mostly just because I don't think that's possible with the way ghosts exist. But, just the fact that you're kind of by being placed in that house, you're stuck in someone's feedback loop, which is, I think, essentially what a haunting is very terrifying and, creates a lot of like not only unease, but also a lack of control. Like, how do I stop this from happening? Why is this happening? What is going on? And having to figure out a history in a space that you thought was safe to inhabit. I think that just really like gets under people's skin, and it's probably why ghost stories have been around for centuries. Like, whether or not ghosts are real, but it's an experience people have had collectively across cultures for centuries. So I think there really is just something there in terms of how effective it can be.
Jonathan, what about you?
Well, I love ghost stories. My favorite horror novel of all time is The Haunting of Hill House. Ray Bradbury gave me a copy of that for Christmas one year and told me that I needed to read it and then explain the ending. And I read that book every single Halloween week. In fact, I just finished it 2 days ago. And every time I read it, I switch back and forth between whether I think it is a story about a haunting or a story about a psychological disintegration of a person who is also the unreliable narrator of the novel. And I flip back and forth. So that, that kind of set me on the path to loving ghost stories. And my favorite short story writer of all times is M.R. James, one of the great ghost story writers that has ever been. And I love ghost stories. Do do they frighten me? I mean, yeah, Haunting of Hill House scared the heck of me when I was a kid, especially when I watched the movie after having read the book. That scene where the library door just kind of breathes in and out. If you ever seen the original 1963 version, which is the only good version of it, scary as hell. But am I afraid of ghosts? That's a toughie because I'm not afraid of much. Um, I'm not afraid like some people are afraid of the slashers with the knife, which is why they love slasher films. I'm 6'4" and I've been doing martial arts for 60 years. I'm not afraid of a slasher with a knife. Been there, kind of done that sort of thing. But ghosts, there is an element to a ghost story that makes it scarier than something that does have a lot of jump scares or something that relies on gore or excessive violence. In that ghost stories are really about an individual's interpretation, an individual's reaction to a potential haunting. And that's so unique to each of us that like when I read The Haunting of Hill House, I got something out of it different than when a couple of friends of mine read it. They were scared of some things and I was scared of other things. And so I was afraid of it at the time. I'm still disturbed by it. So I guess disturbed by ghost stories
Mm,
is a more accurate word for me than
right.
afraid.
Right.
Um,
Okay. I see that.
Haunting of Hill House was another one that had not Haunting of The Legend of Hell House by Richard Matheson. That's another ghost story, and it had some really terrifying moments to it. And if any of those things that happen in those films are possible in the real world, which my grandmother insisted they were, it means that the real world is much bigger and scarier than we think. And I love that possibility.
Mm. I wonder, as we're talking about this, at least to some degree, do you think that, whatever unease, whatever feelings of being, it's disturbing, does it have to do with the fact that either in part or in whole, and the fact that physically and psychologically we can't wrap our arms around this problem, right? If there's an invader, even if it's a monster, but it's a physical creature that's coming to get us, and on some level you think, okay, this thing might be stronger than me, it could slash me or eat me or whatever, but if I had the gun, the knife, the fire, whatever, theoretically I could sort of defend myself. But you can't do that around, a mist or this thing that has no physicality to it. Do you think that's at least part of the what makes it so disturbing, or am I just grasping at straws here?
I'd like to tackle that one because it taps a little bit to what Sonora said about um, the ghost, the spirit. I mean, it's not a physical thing, and our reaction to it is different than if we were facing a physical threat. For me, the ghost itself wouldn't scare me. The thought that I might become a ghost is frightening.
Hmm.
That the afterlife is essentially an ongoing purgatory, almost a prison, where you're anchored to a place, and things like poltergeist throwing things around, yeah, big deal. It's cool. I would actually think it's cool. I would try to find ways to play with it, set things up and see if we can knock them down, that sort of stuff. But ghosts, straight ghosts, I mean, it's sad and it's terrifying in a sad way, and sad in a terrifying way because this thing is trapped. And even if it's trying to scare us, it's, that's another form of communication that is not coming across. And how terrifying and sad that is to think of a personality there trying to reach out and it can't. Year after year after year, it simply can't. It doesn't know how to do it right. That is a terrifying idea, and it breaks my heart.
Just you saying that, an image popped right into my head, and it's those scenes from An American Werewolf in London.
Yeah.
And what's it? The lead's his best friend, right, who gets all mauled, and he keeps coming back, and he's like the afterlife. He goes, it's so boring. He's like, I can't move on. We're just stuck here forever. I'm like, you got to end this for us.
Yeah.
What about you guys? You think so? Is there anything to sort of the lack of physicality that enhances the creepiness or the fear?
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's interesting what Jonathan says about being afraid of being a ghost and feeling trapped. I mean, my personal thought in it is that a ghost that's haunting doesn't realize they're a ghost. I think it's just like a moment or in time or like an energy left behind that's just kind of doomed to repeat itself. If we're talking real hauntings versus what we see in the movies, like just full disclosure, I do believe in ghosts. I believe go on ghost tours and I've experienced hauntings myself. And, I'm willing to accept rational explanations for what I've experienced, but it's just more fun to think of it as a ghost story. But I tend to not believe in ghosts in the way that are shared in ghost stories or in horror movies, because quite frankly, like in real life, it's a little more boring than that, because it's usually just like messing with lights or sound, or just, you getting like a horrible feeling when you're in a space. And so I think going from that, like what I would find interesting though, I mean, we can't know this because no one can report back on what the afterlife is like after they've experienced it. Unfortunately, we can't experience what was in American Werewolf in London, but or maybe fortunately, depending on who you ask. But like I think I've lost my train of thought there. I'm sorry, but basically, what I think of it as is like I'm not really afraid of becoming a ghost. It's just more that what creeps me out is just that there really is no way to truly end it. Like, because it is this moment that is trapped in time, and through some, if you want to call it like the thinning of the veil or just something that has been left behind, it will not go away. And I think that's why, the most effective ghost stories aren't ones that are basically like an exorcism. Like, you can maybe there, I think there are ways to like tone down the haunting or the way you're personally affected by it. But, I tend to enjoy the ghost stories that are more like The Woman in Black, which was just, so it was very terrifying. And at the same time, it showed the bleakness of the story, but without, being nihilistic. Like it was is I mean, I wouldn't call it like a hopeful ending, but it was like a proper like bad ending for what could happen, because it just showed that there was no getting rid of the malevolent spirit in this house. It was just stuck there, and it was going to affect the people staying there as well. So I think that's really what makes ghost stories so effective for me. It's just they're forever there, and that's why usually I like the folk ghost stories best, the ones that are told in that way, because it's just there's this thing happening, so you might want to be mindful if you go stay in that hotel that there's a haunted room.
So Jonathan and Sonora, you wound up sort of touching on my next question. So I'll ask this to Sawney. So the idea of ghosts, spirit, some sort of spirit or apparition with no physical form, it hits the notion of the afterlife, or at the very least, that we're more than just our physical selves. So Sawney, what's your take on ghosts beyond fiction? Do you believe in ghosts and spirits, or is it just sort of something, fun to muse over?
So if you asked me that before, like maybe, I don't know, about 10 years ago, I'd probably say no. I love the concept of ghosts. I said I love being creeped out by ghosts. I love ghost stories and all that. But I've had my own, what I really consider a ghostly experience, a supernatural experience, something that I cannot explain. It actually served as the inspiration for Dirty Spirits, my new novel. But it was one of those things where when it happens to you, when something happens to you that you feel it goes against every rationalization, and the only way you can explain it is there's some sort of supernatural aspect to it, then it stays with you, and you just accept it. So ask me now, do I believe in ghosts? I believe there are, whether it be residue or just call it straight haunting, whatever. I do believe that absolutely happens. I don't really get into why it's happening, or I guess sort of the scientific, if there is a scientific reason behind it. It's for me, it's just something that I do think is a real thing. But as I said, I'm more inclined to, I don't know, scream and run out of the room rather than face it and say, "Oh, hey, ghost, tell me about yourself. What's going on? Why are you here?" I don't do that. I'm the guy who, if I move into a new house and "Oh, what a beautiful house! I'm so glad we moved in." Get out! Oh, it's a shame you can't stay. I'm out of here. I'm that guy. So you listen, Jonathan, Sonora, you are made of much stronger stuff than I am. So I hope that if I ever do encounter a ghost that is malevolent, I'll have you at my side so you can, I don't know, do whatever you do to it, because I'll be out of there.
I'm right behind you if I hear something say "get out," or if I lift up some rugs and see weird symbols and stuff. I mean, I'm moving. Although, spoiler alert for the movie Sinister, that might make it worse.
So
it sounds both of you guys here as you're running out is me starting the car.
I was just going to say, you guys wouldn't even be able to drive. You wouldn't even be able to get home because I already would have been gone. So,
and we burn the place down before we leave, right?
So what happened to feeling, "Oh, it's so sad, the ghost, it's so sad someone being a ghost," or "Oh, hey," what you guys are rationalizing it, feeling bad for the ghost, and then as soon as they say "get out," we're getting the fuck out of
here. Yeah, I mean, I was speaking strictly on if a ghost is just moving my stuff or turning lights off, not threatening me.
It's funny. My grandmother was the one that got me more into the ghost lore, because she was basically Luna Lovegood as an old lady. She believed in everything. But at the same time, she would also make me not only read the folklore, because, she loved folklore has so many better monsters than you see in almost every movie. It's incredible stuff. But she would have me read the anthropology and the psychology and the medicine of it to see if I could knock down a certain belief in something. And the ones that I couldn't knock down, she said, well, those are the ones that may be real monsters. And like with ghosts, she did not personally believe in pernicious ghosts and ghosts that could do you physical harm. To qualify that, she used to say that, but what I think she meant is ghosts that were able to do her physical harm.
Mhm.
I think she believed in malevolent spirits.
Mhm.
But most of the ghosts that she believed in or that she taught me about were just spirits trying to connect, or something like a place being like a battery that stored it. And to me, that is always sadder than scarier. But do I believe in ghosts? I believe my grandmother is still present in my life, and she's been dead for 40 years.
Okay. All right. So, Sonora, you said something a few minutes ago, and I want to come back to it. So, just by happenstance, so Sawney and I, so we grew up together. We went to the same high school, and we lived not that far actually from the actual Amityville horror house. We lived not about 30 minutes from actual Amityville, and there was the house. And, if you drove past it, I mean, it would just like scare the holy just bejesus out of me. So my question is this, a lot of ghosts or ghost stories seem to be, linked to one physical place. The ghost is trapped in the house, or there's something sort of, for whatever reason. The person was killed in the house and it can't leave, or it got buried in the backyard, or whatever it is. So what is it about this sort of, paranormal attachment to a physical location that um, seems to enhance, the proximity factor seems to really enhance the fear. So talk to me a little bit about kind of that connection to, this paranormal issue with a specific physical space. Jonathan, what do you think?
Oh,
Well, I mean, I did mention the battery thing a second ago, that I think some places are kind of like a battery that store energy, or almost like a video clip that kind of replays, or an energetic. So I think that has a lot to do with it. And that pushes it in the direction of it being science we have not quantified yet, and may not actually be a personality directing it. It may simply be an echo of energy that, as it plays out, causes a certain pattern that repeats over and over again. And and that's what hauntings are. The other thing that my grandmother had me believe in, or taught me, and I do actually believe in it quite a lot, is positive and negative energy. I don't necessarily believe in good and bad places. I think bad is a human construct.
Right.
Uh, but there are places I have been where I did not like the energy worth a damn. I wanted to get out of there. And places where I would go and I would feel completely recharged and welcome and so on. And there nothing about the actual places I can point to and say that's the reason I have this emotional reaction. And I know of several places. I've been to a lot of places in the country, and including with some interesting places on the Navajo Res with a friend of mine who lived there, that you could feel that it didn't want you there, or it felt like it didn't want you there. There was a negativity that was repellent, and I don't know what that is, and it's not explainable by science as I know it. So it kind of allows me that open door to
Mm.
maybe there is something there, and I just simply don't know how to define it yet. And one of the things I object to is that a lot of people, they have a glimpse of something like that, and they will go on the talk show circuit saying they know everything about it. And
Fair.
I don't buy that. I
Yeah.
think we each interpret it the way we feel it, but it doesn't mean that's what it actually is.
Right. So Sonora, you said you sound like you had something to add here.
Oh yeah. So I think what makes that particularly frightening, because you mentioned like, when you go by a home or when you go by a fixed place, like why does that scare us so much? I mean, I think in terms of fiction and world building, the easiest answer to that is these are places where we're supposed to feel safe. Like, it's your home, it's protection from the outside world. And it's not as simple as, oh, the calls are coming from inside the house. It's like I have found out that this place I'm living in, it turns out something is here and it has been hanging out here for a long time, and my presence in here doesn't make a difference. And I definitely agree with Jonathan that there are places and spaces where you just suddenly feel, whether or not the space is safe, or on the other end of the spectrum, you feel very safe in that space. And I don't think it's limited to homes or buildings. I think you can feel that in the woods, in a clearing, somewhere where something bad has happened. You can experience cold spots and whatnot. I also do think there's different degrees of sensitivity across individuals based on, just how they experience that.
Yeah, so there's that's an interesting concept, sort of, there's like a violation of your safe space, or a violation of your inner sanctum, that you're, especially if it's in your home, this is where I come and I literally sleep. This is my dwelling, my little comfort place, and something has violated that space in some way. I can't control it, I can't get rid of it, and I don't know what to do about it. And yet I don't want to leave it because this is my safe space. So I wonder if that's really the trap. If some evil thing invaded my house, like in theory, if you walked into someone else's house, you'd be like, later, dude. But when it's yours, it's hard to walk away. And maybe that's really what the trap is. You think, if it was an invader, you would just run, but it's like ooh, so you don't know what to do. All right. So let's talk about, for a moment, let's talk about seances. So most people think it's just a bunch of hocus pocus, and I don't know if it is or it's not, a scam to fleece people who are desperate to reconnect with loved ones gone. But what do you think? Are there actual ways to contact the dead, or when you're gone, or are you just, gone? Sony, what do you think?
I mean, in a sense, I think we're always still connected with those those that we've loved who have passed on. Maybe not in necessarily the ghostly way, but I do think there is still a connection of some sort, however ethereal, spiritually want to call it. There are times when I really think I hear my mom's voice. There are times I even hear, I have two cats, but I had another cat that had passed on, and she had a very distinctive meow. And every once in a while, I will think that I'm hearing that very same meow. Is it my imagination? I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I think we are still connected. Now, as far as like seances and everything, I've never done one, never had any desire to do one. I mean, maybe, I don't know. I'd be, if someone said, hey, you want a free seance? I would say, sure, let me give it a try. But I don't really want to actively reach out to anyone who I know has, shuffled off the mortal coil, because I don't know. I think that's asking for potential trouble. I mean, and I don't really have any questions. I don't really want to know. What am I going to say? Hey, Dad, how's death going? I just don't need to know that. I don't want to know that, and I don't need to connect on that level. So yeah, it's as far as like trying to do it, no. But as far as sort of it happening once in a while, whether it's in my mind or not, I don't try to. I mean, it feels real. So I guess that's what counts.
Jonathan, what about you? Seances, are they just nonsense, or you think that there's
I don't know if they're nonsense or not. I mean, when I was a teenager, we all did seances. It was back in the 70s, and it was a cool way to, anything creepy and fun we did, because that was how, we bonded with some of the girls. We were all like, ooh, scary, and it was fun. But do I believe them? I don't know. My grandmother believed in them, but she said she would never do one, because her view was seances done right are communication, seances done wrong are propping a door open you don't want left open. So I don't know, but my grandmother was wiser than I in many things. So I'm just going to not do a seance. And mind you, there are other things I like. I don't like having my cards read or my fortune told. I don't actually want to be bound to somebody's prediction, because I think often what happens is they become self-fulfilling prophecy. Somebody says something's going to happen, and then you kind of subconsciously steer yourself in that direction. And the last thing I need is a negative thing that makes me feel like I'm drawn to that negativity. So I just kind of stay away from, I use that sort of stuff in my fiction, but it's not part of my my non-fiction life.
Okay, fair enough. So, whereas ghosts are kind of part of the paranormal, there's also this notion of the supernatural. Dark spirits and creatures arising from the depths of magic and more and folklore, and often with religious overtones and origins. Where do they fit in for you when it comes to the afterlife or the other life? How do you think that plays, Sonora?
Well, I am less inclined to believe in the supernatural than in the paranormal if we're talking in terms of our life. Like when I agree with Jonathan's point or his grandmother's point about like, I don't necessarily think seances are fake, but I also would be very skeptical of participating in one if you're because on the off chance you're with someone who doesn't know what they're doing, which there are a lot of people who are just going to do it like not seriously. You might open up things you that would leave you more susceptible, but I don't believe that they would summon like a demon or some type of alien or monster. It would just be more like a bad energy type of deal. So, I obviously enjoy supernatural like in fiction, like in reading and watching it. And I've included it some in my fiction, but in terms of like my own fears, I don't really have a fear of like a creature coming from beyond. I do think if alien life exists, which statistically it probably does, I don't see them really like building ships and wasting their time coming here. Like it's probably going to either be like microbes in the nearby universe, and then further out, they're just too far away to really care. And yeah, I mean, not to reiterate, but like I don't believe in demons or goblins or ghouls or anything like that. So, I think they make for really good stories that are effective and especially for an in the moment scare. But I think as opposed to a ghost story, which can linger, I mean, the ghost stories might not scare you immediately, but I think they're a little more effective in their longevity.
So, Sony, what about you? What's your take on the paranormal versus
Mhm.
the supernatural, on this idea of, things that might linger versus maybe a creature or something that comes from, well, wherever it comes from.
Well, okay, you got two types of creatures. You got your I guess your worldly creatures, your Bigfoots or whatever, and which obviously
Cryptids and
just or not doesn't matter. It's a different thing. We're talking about demons, things that can be summoned from the pits of hell or wherever. No, I don't believe in them. That said, they are absolutely, as Sonora said, they're absolutely a lot of fun to write about. They're great fodder for some great uh, horror stories or fantasy stories or what have you. But yeah, I don't think monsters, at least in the supernatural sense, or some. I said I just don't treat them as a real thing. Now, they say that, of course, I'm going to be attacked by one in the near future because that's the way my life goes. But right now, I am calling them shenanigans on supernatural creatures.
so Jonathan, what about you? You play in a lot of different worlds. Supernatural versus paranormal.
See, I'm a science junkie, so everything to me is science. I think supernatural, and again, this is again my grandmother speaking down the generations to me. Um, I do believe that our universe, our world is much. I'm not talking with distance. I'm talking just in what we understand about it. Is much bigger than we think it is. I mean, we look at what's going on with string theory and so on. They're finding extra dimensions that we didn't know about. And there's that a lot of the theory about the omniverse or multiverse. I that makes a lot more sense to me than supernatural because there's a reason, and everything for me has to have a reason for me to believe in it. There has to be some place for me to stand on solid ground. Supernatural, I guess because I've done so much research into it, and I've written 6 nonfiction books on folklore. It's how I got involved in writing novels originally. I see so many things that appear supernatural, and then you take a real close look at it, and it's not. A good example of this. In Romania, they have actually no vampire legends in Romania. They have strigoi, which are or pernicious ghosts. And the word Nosferatu does not mean undead, it means plague carrier. So the ghosts of that region are bodiless, invisible spirits that come and cause sickness. And for centuries, people believed that it was spirits like that that came and stole the breath from a healthy child while it slept at night. And that is really the pre-industrial way of trying to explain sudden infant death syndrome.
Mhm.
Back then, everything was tied to religion, and religion is itself supernatural. So that, people think their child went to bed healthy and it died. God could not have allowed such a horror, so there must have been something not God. And by believing, going to the village church and talking to the priest says, say this prayer, put this charm up, it won't happen again. And sudden infant death syndrome almost never happens in the same family twice. So what happens is the belief that there is a devil or a monster, and the belief that your religion can protect you against it, is actually a great way for the churches of the time to reinforce loyalty to the church. But there's no way to go back and prove that it was supernatural. Werewolves, same thing. Turns out, if you read the transcripts of werewolf trials, of which there are many hundreds from Italy, Germany, and so on, they're serial killers. It was what they used to describe serial killers. The closer science looks at the supernatural with an open mind and kind of big picture objectivity, the more the supernatural becomes paranormal. And that is actually, to me, more frightening because it means more things can actually exist.
Wait, hang on. Stick with that thought for a second about the idea that supernatural actually seems to be, with further investigation, more paranormal. Just connect those dots a little bit more.
Well, paranormal, I mean, so many thousands and thousands of people have experiences that can't be easily explained, whether
Right.
it's a moment of telepathy, a moment of clairvoyance, predictive behavior, all sorts of things, or seeing ghosts, experiencing things. So since those things happen, they're documented, and in some cases even repeatable. Well, that's how we understand science, by being able to repeat something over and over again, by studying it, quantifying it. Every major government worked on ESP programs for decades, probably still do. Russia, during the Cold War, it was a big thing. Everything from remote viewing to mind reading, it was something. But all of those things, which appear to be supernatural, turn out to be the very first steps into a measurable new field of science. And as we develop instruments sophisticated enough to be able to make those measurements, and some of the ghost hunters are working on things like that, the more we realize that what we know about the substance of our reality is like a barest glimpse. And each generation, we're finding out more and more of it. So I don't believe in supernatural because there's no scientific logic behind supernatural. And there is a great wealth of scientific knowledge and potential understanding in paranormal.
Interesting. All right. So just a quick interlude for those who came in a little late. If you have any questions or comments for the panel, send them in the chat box and we'll get to a few at the end. So I want to kind of go back a little bit to Sawney, you actually mentioned about the idea of demons. So in your mind, how do you really make the distinction between, whatever the mechanism is, you tell a spell, you put pentagrams on the floor or candles or whatever you do, and you summon some demon or whatever from hell or wherever it comes from. But once it's here, this demon, which is theoretic, whether it's a physical demon or it's an apparitional demon or something, do you make that distinction between a ghost, meaning like a ghost was, let's say, a person who is dead and is trapped in the afterlife? And even if there are subtle distinctions, but effectively, don't they kind of end up being kind of the same? Like this other dimensional entity that has invaded our lives and we don't know how to deal with them.
Well, ghosts, as far as I define them, are, souls, people, actual humans that have, are still attached to this world, to some place, versus demons, which I find to be magical creatures of the underworld. I think they're distinctly different things. It's much easier for me to accept the possibility that there is some spiritual residue of a once living person who, for whatever reason, is not moving on to whatever afterlife is. It's much easier for me to embrace that idea and accept that idea rather than a demon. A demon, it sounds to me, well, it just sounds like more bullshit, frankly. It sounds like something that you make up in order to, as Jonathan was saying, you kind of scaring people to well, to be Christians or to be whatever religion they are. Hell, demons, that I think that's all serving that purpose. And as people might say, like, well, the greatest trick Satan ever did was convincing people, he didn't exist. But I've never encountered any demons. I've never encountered any, I've encountered people who believe in Satan, but not actually Satan himself. So yeah, I think it's a distinctly different thing, and one that I don't really, hold much credence in. Ghosts, on the other hand, yeah, I mean, I said I've had my experiences, and I can treat them as something that I can't quite explain them, but they happen, and I can at least accept that as something very real.
So,
Can I throw something in on that real quick? One of the things about demons that has always kind of pissed me off is that they've been used, like the devil made me do it sort of thing. They've been used to excuse bad human behavior. Humans do not need the devil or demons to act badly. I grew up in a very abusive household. My father was a criminal and child abuser, and my four sisters and I lived with a monster our whole lives. So he didn't, if he had claimed that he was possessed or was a demon acting through him, that would have been an escape, an attempt to escape culpability. And I don't buy that. We don't need a supernatural evil. Humans are capable of their own level of evil,
right.
but things like demons are a way of trying to explain that level of aberrant behavior.
Right. What about Sorry, what about you?
And well, I'm glad you said that, Jonathan, because also to that point, it's also used as a way to other people who might be innocent and only the subject of illness, for instance. Like you think a lot of times when people were mentally ill, they'd say like casting the demons out of them, but it wasn't only used to describe people who are committing horrible things and using that to excuse their behavior. It was used to describe people who were having seizures, who had epilepsy,
Right.
or people who were experiencing deep depression or catatonia or other issues. And rather than trying to look at it as rather than being able to see it as the brain, back in history, people will be like, oh, it must be a demon. And what really sucks is by having that continued belief in demons, which is like a whole other podcast I could get into, people will still use that excuse to the point where they say, well, obviously, if you're having mental problems or issues like that, then you must not have accepted God enough and you just need to pray harder. And it's like, no, that's that's not what's happening. But yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with Sonny, in that like the demon with the idea of demons, I don't really equate them with ghosts just because demons to me are kind of like yet another like boogeyman, but believed in by adults. And they don't scare me in the way that like ghosts, and even then with ghosts, I don't really know if I would say ghosts scare me so much as they can be a little unsettling sometimes, especially if you're hearing a story that's happening. I just want to add as a quick note, though, if anyone wants to listen to something entertaining, I can look up the exact name and send it to you later, Russ, if you want to share it with your audience. But there's an album that's actually on Spotify and Tidal that's called like Witchcraft and the Art of Seduction. And it's from, I think, the 60s or 70s. And it's narrated by a woman who self-identifies as a witch. And she does have a piece about how to conjure a demon for your own use. And it's pretty entertaining to imagine the ritual happening as she's describing it.
Okay, that was great. But now it's a special time, a special segment on the show where we spin the wheel. On the wheel are 7 possible categories I created just for this event. Wherever it lands is what you get, and the categories are: who you gonna call, my best friend's exorcism, red rum, Casper the Friendly Ghost, who would win, they're here, and Fright Night. All right, so Sonny, you're a returning champion, so you're up first. You ready?
I'm a champion?
Sure. Why not?
All right.
All right, so who you gonna call? All right, the Ghostbusters are back, but there's an open slot on their team. If you are fully supplied with ghost traps and a proton pack on your back, are you ready to do ghostly battle, or are you afraid
Yes,
of those ghosts?
I'm ready. I want to also.
I absolutely, absolutely. Especially, if we're talking about the original Ghostbusters, Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray, I'm totally hanging with them. And yeah, I'll catch those. They're just a bunch of fun-loving ghosts. Yeah, that's absolutely sounds like something that would be fun to me. However, now if they're actually scary ghosts, then I might just send it out. It'll be on a case by case basis. I guess that's what I'm saying. Yes, I would be a Ghostbuster, but I would be a little bit selective about. No, hey, Bill, Dan, you get it. Whatever your names are in the movie. I can't remember their name. Egon.
So you're a Ghostbuster reserve.
Exactly. I'm a Ghostbuster reserve.
All right, fair enough. All right, Sonora, you're up next.
Right.
All right, what do we got for you? All right, and you got Bright Night. Okay, this is another new one on the show. What do we got here? God only knows what I put in here. Okay, high school is tough enough without having to deal with the fact that the person you're dating has been turned into a vampire. Do you break up and hope your paramour lets you go, or do you double down, smother yourself in garlic, and hope that your late night hickeys don't break the skin on your neck?
Oh, Jesus. I mean, as a 38-year-old, I would say Sonora, run and maybe carry garlic with you to keep them away from them. But high school Sonora probably would have thought it was forever and would say yes, turn me into a vampire. Let's make this forever. And I actually wrote a story called You Promised Me Forever that was about after the honeymoon period of being turned into a vampire for your lover.
Okay, well, there you go. All right, Jonathan, you're up. Here we go. All right, what do we got? And for you, we have no duplicates. So we're gonna go to the next one. My best friend's exorcism. All right, what do we got here? Good Lord. Okay, in Grady Hendrix's great book, My Best Friend's Exorcism, a teenage girl is faced with having to perform an exorcism to save her, best friend. If you were completely convinced that your best friend was possessed by a demon, spirit, or ghost, and no one would or could help, would you try to perform the exorcism yourself or run like hell and ask for forgiveness later?
Tough question because I don't know. I know like the Catholic ritual of exorcism only because I grew up in a Catholic neighborhood and I've watched all the movies. If it turns out the demon is not Christian in any way, then how would I even know how to exorcise it? Because there are demons in every culture around the world. So I would probably by the time I finished making the decision, I would be 4 states away, and I'd be moving pretty fast. He's on his own. I mean, demon, sorry, you're gonna attack my mugger. I got your back. Demon, yeah.
Okay, all right. So you're a good friend, but not that good of a friend.
No,
Okay. Just messing with you. All right.
Send him a card.
Okay.
Card.
yeah.
Okay. All right. That was awesome. But now it's time where you have to pick your poison. I've got 3 choices for you, A, B, and C, but I'm not going to tell you what's behind each one, but I'll all tell you that they're related to tonight's theme. All right. So, Jonathan, you were up last. Now you're up first. A, B, or C?
I'll go for B.
B. Okay. What do we got here? What did I do? This is okay. The Ghost of Christmas Past. So you are visited by the ghosts of Christmas past and future and present. However, you are not completely sold that these ghosts are real. Do you take them at their word and try to turn over a new leaf on life, or do you ignore them and roll the dice?
I wouldn't ignore them. I would probably do like my own version of spiritual Jeopardy. I'd actually have to make them answer a whole bunch of questions about my life, things that nobody else would know, that nobody could have figured out, and is maybe playing a scam on me. If they got some answers right, then yeah, I'm considering a change of behavior. Absolutely.
Fair enough. Okay, Sonora. So you've got A or C?
C.
Okay, so this one is I see dead people. So if it turned out that you were able to see dead people, communicate with them, and all the sort of secrets that they have with them, would you?
Yeah. Yeah, I would. I mean, I figure they probably can't hurt me, and I know a few protection things if I worried about that.
Okay, and this is also knowing they could tell you things that you may definitely not want to know.
Well, hopefully we can set some boundaries in terms of what's discussed.
I don't think it works that way, but all right, you're willing
Look,
to roll.
communication is a two-way street. That's what they'd probably just be like, okay, we're gonna find someone else to talk to, because I'd be like putting in all these stipulations, and they'd be like, no.
Hey, Sonora, that's the plot of a really good novel. You should write it.
Yeah, well, I did write one about a girl who sees the dead and none of them want to talk to her, so it was like the opposite problem.
How to negotiate with dead people. There you go. All right, so Sonny, that leaves you with A. So we're going to give you some truth serum. So I got 10 questions based on tonight's theme, and here we go.
Okay.
All right. Cemeteries, spooky or peaceful?
Peaceful.
Watching ghost story movies, lights on or off?
Off.
Scarier experience, scary movie, scary book?
Scary movie.
Okay. Have you ever had a nightmare after reading a book or watching a movie about ghosts or the supernatural? And if so, which story?
I'm going to say yes. Well, I can go back to that Child of Glass movie, that freaky Disney movie that when you're 5 years old, it's really freaky. But more recently, maybe Sinister, which I know, they've done supposedly scientific study. But anyway, but Sinister is another one that got under my skin. I think it crept into my dreams in not a happy way.
Okay.
So
which
creepy.
which is scarier? And this is links back. Jonathan actually jumped the queue without realizing. Which is scarier, confronting a ghost or realizing you are one?
Oh shit. I'm going to say confronting. If I realize I am one, that's just kind of a different, I don't know. I just have to kind of figure things out. It's not so much scary as in like, okay, I have to check my new reality. But confronting one, I think, is far more, freaky.
Okay. Werewolves or vampires?
Oof, werewolves.
Killer clowns, yay or hell no?
Actual like killer clowns from outer space, or are we talking killer clowns like from It?
Yes.
All right. Killer clowns from outer space, totally would hang with them. Coolest looking like movie monsters, like not ever, but certainly up there. Clowns in general, like evil clowns. Yeah, I don't know. I might have a beer with them or something.
Jump scares or moody creepy?
Jump scares work for me, but I prefer moody creepy.
Okay. So, scarier movie, The Others or Poltergeist?
Oh, geez. I got to go with Poltergeist.
Okay. And Halloween triple feature of ghost story movies, which three?
Oh, geez. Let's go for Spanish film, The Orphanage. Let's go with, I'll call The Fog, which is, right behind me. I'll call that one. And what are the good ghost signs? There's so many really good ones that I'm going to be drawing a blank around. Oh, let's call Event Horizon.
Ooh,
Great ghost story in space.
Yes. Okay. All right. So we're going to take some questions from the audience. I got one. We've got time for at least one. All right. So this is right up everyone's alley. As writers, how do you add the spooky to your writing? Is it all good use of atmospheric language, supernatural tropes, jump scares, starting with a solid, frightening plot, or you just write the things that scare you?
Yes. Kind of all of the above. Yeah.
I was gonna say, yeah, and one thing that I try and do when I write is incorporate a jump scare by having something appear at the end of the paragraph or at the beginning of the next one, but it's most effective when it's like so-and-so did, and then like the scary thing just ends the paragraph and it's like, eh. So I try and like move in that flow where it's like that feeling of like turning a corner and shit, there's something scary.
Okay. Jonathan?
For me, it's character. It's all about the character. It's not about the setups. It's what impacts a character in such a way that they're losing their belief in the substance of reality as they know it. Is seeing a monster, seeing whatever, if it goes beyond anything they have learned, and threatens existence as they know it, that's terrifying to me. So when I'm writing something, I pick a character and I drill down into their reactions as the situation unfolds. Usually it's a changing reaction. And it's the scariest before they have learned whatever they need to develop some agency that might take them into a successful resolution. But that, up to that point, it's not really about the right, which adjectives you pick. It's about how deeply you get inside somebody's personality in a way that makes that person real to the reader.
Fair enough. All right. We got just a couple of minutes. So I'm going to share my screen and we got some goodies for everyone. So hang on just 1 minute. So bear with me. Let me do a little techie thing here. All right. So here we go. And boom. And okay. So, whoops. What do we got here? Okay. Bingo. All right. So, Jonathan, what am I looking at here?
Looking at the picture of your dog.
You are? That's weird. All right, let's try this again. All right. We didn't do that right. How about this one?
Just seeing if
there we go.
There we go.
So Necrotech is the first book in a new series that I'm doing for a brand new imprint called Weird Tales Presents. And the conceit is that a space station is accidentally teleported to the far side of the galaxy during a mishap of a teleportation experiment. And we find out that creatures like Cthulhu and so on came to Earth because they were afraid of what's out there. And now we're out there and we're stuck out there. And it deals with, the outer gods, the Shoggoths, and the creature that you see, or the thing you see on the cover of the book, is actually one of the good guys. As the human pilots, starfighter pilots, are killed, their ghosts are brought back by necromancy to inhabit these alien shape-shifting spaceships. So you have to, even dying to save your people isn't the end of your fight. And the longer you stay in your ghost stays in one of those machines, the more it erodes your soul until you do not exist anymore. So brand new series. First book is out right now. And I'm about to start working on the third one.
So it's basically just like a giant box of puppies. So there you go.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Wow. That is wild. Awesome. All right. So what else we got here? So Sonora, what are we looking at?
All right, well, you're looking at my latest release. It just came out October 15th. It's called Errant Roots, and it's part of a novella series from Raw Dog Screaming Press. And so it's a combination of folk horror, cult horror, and family horror. And it's about a woman named Deirdre who has never met anyone else in her family. It's always just been her and her mother. But then when she accidentally gets pregnant, her mom decides that that's the perfect time to meet the rest of her family. And so the novella takes place over the course of one evening and Deirdre finding out why she has never met them.
Great cover, too.
Yeah, that was by Lynn Hanson.
One of my favorite people.
Yes. I'm sorry. Is it out now?
Yes, it's out now. It's been out for a couple weeks. You can get it wherever books are sold, and the audiobook is also making its way out as well.
Awesome. All right, Sawney. So what do we got here?
Look at that. Sorry, I'm just reacting myself. So Dirty Spirits. It's my occult paranormal novel. It's my latest work. Just been out for a few months now. It's about a man who must rescue his recovering addict's girlfriend who's been possessed by the spirit of her deceased ex-fiance. So if you like occult paranormal stuff, I like to describe it as kind of a Netflix's The Fall of the House of Usher meets a little bit of Evil Dead 2 and Leaving Las Vegas. And just so happens right now, this week only, it's on sale for 99 cents. The ebook is on sale for 99 cents. That's $5 off. So if you want to give it a try, if occult paranormal stuff is your thing, it's a great time to get it right now in ebook. Less than the cost of a dollar bill.
There you go. And I will say I read it and it's really, really good. So I highly recommend Dirty Spirits. There's a lot of stuff going on there, and it'll suck you right in. All right. Okay. As for me, I want to introduce you to Trigger Point. It's the newest book in my ongoing series featuring hard-boiled private detective Angela Hardwick. And in my mind, the series is part Blade Runner, part Doctor Who, part John Wick. In Trigger Point, so Hardwick has recently been released from prison for reasons I will not explain. And as her first solo case back on the street, she's hired by this really nasty pimp to track down whoever killed his best earner. And this isn't about business for him. It's personal. Hardwick she's reluctant to take on the case but she's got some history with this guy also. I will not explain why, but she really needs the gig. Along the way, her protege, Eric Whistler, and her partner suddenly goes missing, caught in this sort of temporal loop. So she's torn between tracking down the killer of sex workers and her missing partner. But meanwhile, the fabric of space-time is literally beginning to crack and dragging Hardwick into a realm of nightmares, symbolism, and the dreamscape, which you can see right here on the cover. And it forces her to confront demons that she would really hope would stay buried forever. Now, I just want to be clear. Every book in the series is a standalone thriller, so you can read them in any order. It doesn't matter where you start. And I reintroduce the characters and the world building every time out. Trigger Point, it's available on Amazon, and it's published by Crazy 8 Press. All right, guys, that's our show. I want to thank Jonathan, Sonora, and Sawney for coming on and talking about supernatural and ghosts and creepy things that give us the shudders. And I want to thank everyone who's watching at home. And as always, be gentle, be kind, be generous of spirit, and for God's sake, read a book, and in particular, vote blue. Happy Halloween, everyone, and I'll see you all in 2 weeks, kicking off the final shows of the season. All righty, guys. Take care. Bye now.
Bye.
All right, guys.
Bye-bye.
All right, I'll see you.